Oh, it's going to be a circus.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good afternoon, Corporal.
Good afternoon, Mr. Bowles.
So, in your direct testimony, do I understand that you said you did not do the prop truck warrant until the 27th because, and I'm still going, because you did not have information from Ms. Gutierrez-Reed about the prop truck?
If that's the statement that I made.
Okay, so you stated under oath just a little bit ago that the delay in the prop truck search warrant from the 21st to the 27th was because you didn't have information about the prop truck from Ms. Gutierrez-Reed, correct?
So I wasn't even the case agent at that time.
Okay, that wasn't my question. My question was, you just stated earlier in your testimony that you didn't have information about the prop truck from Ms. Gutierrez-Reed, correct?
Maybe if that's what I said.
Okay, then I want to show you what I'm going to mark for identification as defendants O. And may I approach, Your Honor? Corporal, I'm going to show you what is marked as defendants O and ask you if you could review that and see if you identify it.
So your highlighted portion?
Just the document itself.
Okay.
Do you know what that is?
Yes.
What is that?
So this is the search warrant that I wrote on October 27th to search the prop truck.
Your Honor, I'd move admission of defendants O.
I will have an obvious objection to pages and pages of inadmissible hearsay. Would you like to approach? Or?
Yes.
So, Corporal, do you recall that you
got rejected
were the affiant for a search warrant for that prop truck?
Yes.
And when I say affiant, I mean that you swore under oath to the judge to get this search warrant that these statements you made were true, correct?
Yes.
Now, do you recall making a statement to this judge to get a search warrant for the prop truck that due to the information received from Hannah, affiant would like approval of a search warrant for the prop truck on scene due to the statement received about firearms and ammunition being stored in the truck? Do you remember making that statement?
Yes.
Okay. Do you also remember making the statement to the judge that after conducting an interview with Hannah Gutierrez-Reed, she advised on the day of the incident that the crew broke for lunch, firearms were taken back and secured inside a safe on a prop truck? Recall making that statement?
Yes.
So this statement under oath, don't you agree with me that it conflicts with your statement you just made under oath in testimony?
In what way?
You told this jury earlier that you did not have information from Ms. Gutierrez-Reed about the prop truck. That's why there was a delay in doing this search warrant. But in fact, you told the judge you did have information from Ms. Gutierrez-Reed, didn't you?
Yes, I did.
So you're asking this jury to believe you today. Which of these statements were true? This statement or the one you told them just earlier in court?
I guess I did get a statement from her that stuff was stored on the prop truck.
Okay, will you agree with me then that the testimony you just gave under oath a little while ago was not true?
I'm sorry, I don't remember exactly what I said.
Okay. You also stated that you also made a statement that Ms. Gutierrez-Reed had unloaded that firearm, the Baldwin revolver, over the prop cart. You recall that statement?
Yes.
And in fact, You made that statement numerous times, as I recall. Do you recall making it at least once?
Yes, because that's what she had said in her first interview.
Can you point out to me, and I'm all ears if you can, because I didn't hear it. Can you point out the timestamp where she said that about loading it over the prop card?
I don't have the timestamp.
Okay. Do you recall Ms. Gutierrez Reed's exact words in that first interview about unloading that gun?
Verbatim, no.
Okay. If I played you a clip, would it refresh your memory?
Yes.
Okay. Judge, do you want me to turn this
Is
down?
anybody going to look at what it's showing her?
Well, I'm happy to look at what he's showing. I'm happy to look at what he's showing, but I also think probably the better and more complete way of handling this is to review the transcript, and I think we have numerous copies of that. So, I'm not going to tell Mr. Bowles how to do his job, so show me what you're going to show her.
Well, I'm refreshing recollection.
I know, but
Sure.
show
And
us.
you show me what you're going to refresh with.
This is a clip, and so if you want to play the actual video that was entered, we can do that too.
Well, you have it. She's your witness now. You do what you want to do.
Okay, if you don't want to help us out, is that what you're saying? You don't want to play?
Mr. Bowles,
Yeah.
you have it. You have computers. She's your witness.
Okay, then I'll play. Your Honor, chat's better
You're
at
going to
operating.
refresh her memory.
I still don't know what he's going to play.
Okay, all right.
Wait a
I
second.
have no idea what
are you
he's
showing
doing.
her?
Yeah, I'm
Wait,
just
wait,
playing
you're
a
not
clip.
listening to. What are you showing her?
I'm playing her a clip of that video that was entered into evidence.
Which one, the first one?
The first one,
So I
The
think
first clip,
I think
which
Ms.
took 50 minutes?
but it's just a short clip. It's like 20 seconds.
So he needs to show it to me. Can we just step in the
Yeah.
right outside?
And then you don't want the jury to
hear.
hear it again because you're refreshing her her memory, not
It's already, Judge, it's entered into evidence. They
That's
can
not,
hear
that's not true. You're refreshing her memory.
it. No, but I could play it as if it's in evidence already.
Then
So
play the exhibit.
they've heard it. Can we approach for a moment just
Yes.
to clarify this?
So what he's saying is I've taken a short clip from that first interrogation, but that's his short clip is not evidence. The evidence is the entire video. Now, if he wants to go to a portion of that video that was introduced in evidence, he's free to do that. He's not free to introduce another video that purports to be an excerpt from the video actually introduced in evidence. What he's got in his hand is not in evidence. It's like if you took a photo of a photo. The first photo was introduced into evidence, but your photo of that photo is not evidence. This is amateur hour. Unbelievable. But Bowles doesn't have the timestamp. He doesn't have the timestamp. So he can't just use the exhibit and fast forward to that point. He was counting on using this thing. I want to check and see if he's actually admitted to the bar. Amazing. She is cooked. Gutierrez, whatever you think about this case on the merits, this guy gives me zero indication that he knows how to do this job. Yes, right. So he'd have to say replay, 34 minutes, 34 seconds to 34 minutes, 58 seconds. Right. From the exhibit that's actually introduced into evidence. He doesn't have to play the whole 50-minute clip, but he has to play something from that clip. No, he has the video. He has the whole 50-minute video. He has the exhibit. but he doesn't remember where on the exhibit is that is the piece he wanted to play. He thought he was going to be allowed to do this.
Okay, Corporal, while we were kind of dealing with that, I want to come back to that question on the prop card loading. And again, because Miss Gutierrez-Reed did not say that in the interview we just heard. She said she went outside with Dave Halls and unloaded the revolver. She didn't mention anything about a prop card. You agree with me on that?
I do not, because I do remember her saying something about doing it over a prop card.
Which interview, the first or second we heard?
I believe it was the first, and then the second is where she mentioned that she was in 2 separate places.
Okay, and so we're going to try to find that on the first, and if you can find it when we come back and redirect them, I want to hear it.
She doesn't have
So
to
if you
find it.
that timestamp. Now,
That's
also
your
said
job.
that you did not meet Seth Kenney until October 27th, until the search of the prop truck, correct?
I believe that was the first time that I had met him in person.
Okay, well, you said the word, your first interaction with Seth Kenney was October 27th for the search of the prop truck. Do you recall that?
No, I said the first time in person.
Okay. And in fact, you had a prior telephone call with him, correct?
Yes.
And that was on the day of the shooting.
I think I actually had probably a couple phone calls with him before.
On that day, on the 21st?
Just in between, in between the day of the incident and then to the search of the prop truck.
Okay, and we're going to talk about the day of the incident, the call that you all made to Troy Teskey. Do you recall that?
On the day of the incident?
Yes.
I don't recall a phone call on the day of the incident to him.
Not that afternoon around 4 p.m.?
To a Troy?
Troy Teskey?
No.
Okay.
I don't recall. I'm sorry.
Okay. And you also said that Miss Gutierrez-Reed said she saw Sarah collecting guns. Recall that?
Yes.
And again, I'd like to see if you could point that out, where that is in the interview, because didn't she say instead that Sarah took stuff from the prop cart and she may have took a gun she never saw? She said she saw her.
I think the phrase that she used was that she saw Sarah collect the guns. And then later on in that interview, she kind of changed her answer.
Okay, and the jury will be able to hear that too, but I'd like to know where that is if you know.
I can't point timestamps out to you, Mr. Bowles.
Okay. Now, you are the case agent in this case, correct?
I was not at first, but a couple weeks in, yes, I was.
And so for 2 years, you've been the case agent, correct?
Yes.
Now, if you can tell the jury, that means that you are basically the lead agent on the case. Is that right?
Yes.
And you collect all the information, you do all the investigation, you read all the reports. Is that right?
A majority of it, yes. And then because this case was rather large, I had assistance from other detectives and the district attorney's office.
So as part of that, you collect various sources and maybe people are helping you, but you're ultimately the ultimate person with all the information in the case. Is that right?
With what's pertinent, I would say so, yes.
Okay.
But considering how many people were involved and how dynamic and everything this case was, it is kind of not essentially feasible for me to know every single piece of information. That's why people helped.
Sure. And let's start with the first interview and the day of the shooting. Now, you recall from your direct and from the videos we saw that you actually walked Miss Gutierrez-Reed to the bathroom?
Yes.
And you were walking her to the bathroom from when she had been detained in Mr. Benavides' car, correct?
Incorrect, because she was not detained at that point.
Okay, well, legality, a legal word, but she was sitting in Mr. Benavides' car, correct?
Yes.
Now, while she was sitting in Mr. Benavides' car, you knew as case agent what had happened that day was Mr. Baldwin had been allowed to walk around and talk to people.
I do not know anything that had happened with him or where he was prior.
Well, do you know, as we sit here today, the case agent, having reviewed the pictures of Mr. Baldwin on the cell phone, are you telling the jury you don't know he was out talking to people?
I'd say he was out, but at the time that I was there, no.
I'm talking about your knowledge today. Do you know today that Mr. Baldwin was not put in a police car like Ms. Gutierrez Reed?
That's correct.
Okay. And you know today that Mr. Baldwin, there's a picture of him on his cell phone talking to somebody on the day of the shooting.
Yes.
Okay. And you know that there is a video of him talking with David Halls and some other people on a truck area.
Is any of this in evidence?
I'm sorry, you said a video with him talking with...
To David Halls?
I don't know of that video.
Okay. In any event, she's in Mr. Benavides' car, and you're walking Miss Gutierrez Reed to the bathroom.
Yes, sir.
And, ma'am, we saw that you went inside the bathroom with Miss Gutierrez Reed, correct?
That is correct.
And one of the reasons you did that was you said that you felt like she might harm herself.
No, I didn't say that I felt like she was going to. It's just typical for us, especially because she had requested me to go with her. At the end of the day, my concern is, on that day, my concern is her well-being. She was obviously very distraught at that time. I wanted to make sure that she wasn't going to have some sort of medical episode or something happen in the bathroom where I would have to step in at that point.
Did she actually ask you to come in the bathroom with her?
No.
Okay. But you went ahead and went in.
Yes, and I turned the opposite direction from her to give her privacy.
And would you agree with me that she had never met you, that'd be fairly intrusive to go inside the actual bathroom with her?
That would be a question for Ms. Gutierrez.
Okay. Now, you felt like you were wanting to make sure she didn't hurt herself, including in the bathroom. And so you must have felt like she was very distraught.
She just said she didn't say that.
Yes, I do feel like she was distraught that day.
And you also heard her say, did you not, that she, this was the worst day of her life? She didn't want to live, words to that effect?
I don't recall hearing her saying anything that she didn't want to live.
Or she said, my life is over. Sorry, I misremembered that.
And I will object. I believe that is absolutely a misstatement of what she said on the video. And if Mr. Bowles needs to review the video, I can pull it up.
Do you recall what she said?
Verbatim, no, but something to that extent.
Okay. So after knowing that, you all take her back to the station, and we see yourself and Talamonte sitting around a table, correct?
Yes.
And Miss Gutierrez Reed is then in the corner on the opposite end of that table, correct?
Yes.
Now, do you remember she mentioned at the start that something about maybe she should talk to a lawyer?
Yes.
And you all told her that, or not you, but do you remember hearing Talamonte tell her that it might be a public defender and it might take all night?
Yes, something to that extent.
Okay, so with that, that statement was made to her with her asking how long a lawyer would take to get, correct?
I believe so.
Okay. And then do you recall hearing that you all told her it was just going to be a few basic questions?
I did not make that statement, no, but I believe Hannah's response was that she was willing to answer a few basic questions.
Okay, and with that, she signed her Miranda waiver.
Yes.
A waiver of her Miranda rights, is that right?
Yes.
So you felt it was okay for her to do that, even in the distraught state that she was in, whereby you thought she might...
These are legal arguments you make to a judge pre-trial.
Possibly.
These are not fact arguments.
I don't believe I said anything about her wanting to hurt herself. Just that obviously we take care of the well-being of people.
Okay.
And then, I'm sorry, what was the other part of the question?
No, that's it. You answered it. Now, during this first interview, you did not tell Ms. Gutierrez Reed that Halyna had passed, did you?
No, I didn't even know that Miss Hutchins had passed away until essentially right before I told Mr. Baldwin.
Okay. So you didn't know at that time either?
I did not know.
Okay. Now, during the course of that interview, I think you state actually at the end of the second interview that when people have undergone a traumatic event, sometimes they can say unusual thing. I can't remember the exact words you used.
Yeah, something about their perception or
You can't remember the exact words.
recollection after something like that could be, I guess.
Bowles, what are you doing?
Okay, and you've seen that in the course of your career as an officer, that after somebody undergoes a traumatic event, sometimes their memory is affected.
Yes, and that's why we conduct additional interviews.
Okay, so it's a fact. You would agree with that she had just witnessed a very traumatic. She had been through a very traumatic situation.
Right. She didn't witness it because she
witness
wasn't inside the church.
Right. So she was not inside the church. That's what you concluded based on your investigation?
And her statements.
Okay. And you were able to corroborate that, right?
Yes.
Okay. So knowing that, the statement she gave, again, those could have been impacted in some ways by her being a part of a traumatic situation.
Theoretically.
Now, would you
This guy's
also
as
agree
good a
with me
lawyer
that
as
you
Hannah
asked
is an
different
armorer?
questions in the second interview than the first interview?
Yes, I asked a lot of questions in the second interview.
Yeah, it was a lot more comprehensive, correct?
That is correct.
Now, you also know that when you take an interview of somebody, that you can use that in court against them, correct?
Their interview?
Yes.
Yes.
So while you were doing that, while you were questioning her and you all were talking to her and looked like kind of being friendly with her, you knew that you could later use that one day in court.
Yes.
Okay. And
I don't believe this guy's a
I
lawyer.
mean, did she appear during that first interview?
This looks like a defendant arguing pro
She
se.
was in a very distraught state.
I would say that when
I'm just going to object to asked and answered. She's already testified to it.
That's fine. She has already said that. Okay. Now, in the first interview, Ms. Gutierrez-Reed told you there were 3 sources of ammunition, correct?
in the first interview,
Yes.
not correct.
Okay. What did she tell you in the first interview?
That they came from Seth Kenny.
Okay. And then she later tells you, the second interview, it's Seth Kenny, Billy Ray, and herself, right?
I don't know if I don't remember if she identified Billy Ray, but she did list additional sources.
Okay. And she also told you that Seth Kenny had given her ammunition for the prior movie set that she was on, The Old Way.
I don't recall her specifically saying that Seth Kenny provided that.
And again, you don't remember from the first interview a statement that she got ammunition from Seth Kenny?
I just said that she did say that she got it from Seth Kenny.
Okay. Did you try to corroborate that to pull invoices to show that Seth Kenny had brought ammunition from to the Old Way set?
Not to the Old Way.
Okay. Now, there was talk about the idea of sabotage, and you mentioned that this came to your attention as part of this investigation, correct?
Correct.
Do you recall seeing in that first interview that Officer Talamonte brings up the idea to Ms. Gutierrez-Reed that the camera crew walking off, does she think one of them might have done something?
She, Detective Talamonte, did present the idea to Ms. Gutierrez about the camera crew, and Ms. Gutierrez's response was no, that she didn't think it was them, and that she wouldn't want to think that way of anyone.
And so that was on October 21st. So the first mention that you're aware of the possibility of sabotage was your fellow detective, Ms. Talamonte, correct?
That I would say is incorrect.
Well, where did you hear it before that?
Before
The 21st, before Detective Talamonte says that. Who said it before that?
that was a theory that we threw out to try to get answers, not a theory from someone that was on set.
Oh, so when you say We threw out a theory. What do you mean?
The sheriff's office.
So the sheriff's office created a theory?
No, again, we were trying to get answers to questions that we had as to how or why something like this would potentially happen.
So was this a ruse? You're trying to trick people? Is that what you're talking about? You created a theory? What is that what the intent was?
No.
Okay, well then did you believe this theory?
Believe the theory about the camera crew?
The sabotage that you threw out, that the sheriffs put out. Did you believe there was some truth to that?
No.
Okay, so you put out a false theory.
And I'm going to object. She didn't put out a false theory. She didn't say it in the interview. It simply wasn't her.
Okay, well then Talamonte put out a false theory.
Well, get him on.
Again, it's an interview, so we can discuss things, bring up things to, again, try to get questions answered and figure out how to or where to go with our investigation.
Okay, and trying to get answers from people through a false idea. Did you ever actually investigate the camera crew? Did you interview any of them?
I did not interview them, no.
Did anybody in your team interview any of them?
I believe Detective Joel Cano did.
How many of them did he interview?
That would be a question for Detective Joel Cano.
Okay, and you as the case agent don't know that?
No.
And you don't know what the result of those interviews are?
I would have to read his reports.
And also on that idea, you brought up the idea of Starline Brass in the second interview, and that these were appeared to be reloads because Starline Brass doesn't make live ammunition. Do you recall that part of the interview?
Yes.
Now you heard the special prosecutor's expert, Mr. Haig. He talked about those rounds appearing more to be reloads, the live rounds. Did you hear that testimony?
Yes, I did.
And do you agree with him that those appear to be reloads?
Well, and obviously I have to object. It's so far outside the scope of what she could testify to. She's not an expert in ammunition. That's why we called Mr. Haig.
And, okay, I'll ask you another question. Do you have any reason to doubt Mr. Haig that he's correct?
No, objection.
That's his.
Relevance?
Well,
I'll overrule. Go ahead.
based on your investigation as a case agent and everything that you reviewed in this case, do you have any information to dispute your own expert, Mr. Haig?
That's not her expert.
So if those are reloads, and you know what JS means, Joe Swanson, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so you had known from talking to Thel Reed that Thel Reed had delivered live ammunition to Seth Kinney on the set of 1883, correct?
From his statement, yes.
Yes, and you knew that you had talked to Troy Teskey and that he had first been holding these and giving them to Thel Reed, correct?
Correct.
Now, did you investigate the idea further, given that these were reloads, to try to figure out the source of the reloads?
No, because really what's important to law enforcement were the circumstances of what occurred that day and the facts and the evidence of what occurred during the incident.
Okay, well then, Ms. Morrissey asked you earlier if you had any information as to Seth Kinney bringing live rounds on set, but what you just said is you were more focused on the events of the day. Is that correct?
That was our main focus, yes.
So is it fair to say, would you agree with me that you didn't fully investigate the circumstances of these reloads?
I would say that we investigated it.
But you did not fully investigate it because you were more focused on the events of the actual day. Is that fair to say?
Yes.
Okay. Now, you also talked about earlier that it was kind of a circumstantial theory about Ms. Gutierrez Reed, but you have no direct evidence that you can tell the jury today that she brought live rounds to set.
That's correct.
Oh, the first good question.
I remember you had told me at one point that when you interviewed Sarah Zachary, she gave conflicting information. Is that true?
I don't recall my conversation with you. I can say that I did not conduct Sarah's initial interview, but I know it was fairly short, and I did a more in-depth one with her later.
Did you find in the course of those interviews, the one you did, her statements to be conflicting?
I believe that they were.
In the course of your investigation, did you also conclude that Seth Kinney had wanted Ms. Gutierrez-Reed fired?
I would disagree with him wanting her fired. I believe the conversation that I had seen was that Sarah had the ability to fire her because essentially she wasn't pulling her weight.
Well, did you ever corroborate and try to investigate that with the statements of Troy Teskey and Sarah Zachary?
Corroborate.
I'm sorry, I'm just confused about the question, if you could.
Okay, sure, I'll reword it. Did you interview or talk to both Sarah Zachary and Troy Teskey? Did they give you information about whether Seth Kinney wanted her fired?
I don't recall.
Okay. Now, you would agree with me, would you not, that Ms. Gutierrez-Reed was cooperative with you in terms of sitting down for interviews?
Yes.
And she was also cooperative in providing her phone?
Yes.
Okay. So you didn't have to do a search warrant for that?
No, I didn't have to on anyone's, essentially, besides Alec Baldwin's.
Okay. Yeah. Alec Baldwin had to have a search warrant, had to go through New York, and that whole process. Is that what happened?
That's correct.
Okay. Now, as part of your investigation, you concluded not only that Hannah was not in the church at the time, but that she had handed the weapon to Mr. Halls?
Yes.
And did you also conclude that Mr. Halls had handed that to Mr. Baldwin?
Yes. And I just want to specify this is before the incident.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I should have given you a time frame.
Thank
So,
you.
yes, you're right. That's right after lunch and right before the shooting is what I'm talking about.
Okay.
And so in that time frame, did you conclude based on all your investigation?
So by statements, that is what I concluded. However, there were opposing statements at the beginning of the investigation.
Okay, there were conflicting statements at the beginning?
Yes.
Did you determine that those were not correct, those conflicting statements?
They were.
I guess I'm going to object because I don't know specifically what statement he's referring to.
Oh, sure. I'll ask you. Okay. I'll ask the witness. Yes, Your Honor. Corporal, what statements were conflicting with that idea?
So on the day of the incident, I did interview Mr. Baldwin, and in his interview, he initially had stated that Hannah handed him the gun. However, later he changed that statement and said that Dave Halls had been the one that handed him the gun.
And I just would ask the court for some kind of an instruction or guidance with regard to this. Sounds like hearsay. So if it's not being offered for that, then can we kind of iron that out?
Sure. And counsel asked to know those statements, but
Counsel what?
asked to know what those statements
Well,
were.
that doesn't mean that she opened the door for hearsay.
No, and I understand, Your Honor. And I'm just, based on her knowledge of these, the effect on her and what she did investigation-wise. So,
Well, Ari, ask it that way.
yes. So, and I'm not trying to get into the core of the statements unless people want to hear it. But I do want to ask you what certain things had impact on you and your investigation. So that's why I asked that. How did you reconcile, and when you got those conflicting statements, what did you do to make your ultimate conclusion? Did you review additional information, talk to more people? What did you do?
Yeah, so that was, essentially the purpose of re-interviewing and gathering people's statements.
Okay. Did you also learn and conclude that Ms. Gutierrez-Reed, when she handed Halls the weapon, had shown him the rounds?
Her statement was that she showed him what was in the cylinder, not that she took the rounds out.
Okay, and you also heard her say that before she put in the last round, that she had shaken it in her statement. Do you remember hearing that?
Yes.
Okay. Now, you, as part of your investigation, you also were aware that numerous people had access to that prop truck?
Yes.
And that was because in the day it was not secured?
I wasn't on set, so I can't
Okay.
call that, but
But
that
did
was
you-
my understanding.
That's what your understanding was.
Yes.
And did you learn in the course of your investigation, your understanding, that it took props a while to get a prop cart used for their weapons?
I believe it took a few days for them.
Okay. Were you aware whether Ms. Gutierrez-Reed had to pull a wagon before that?
No.
Okay. You never heard that she had a wagon?
No.
Objection asked and answered.
Okay.
Okay.
You knew as part of your investigation that Ms. Gutierrez-Reed was performing 2 jobs and had to support props, correct?
That's correct.
And she also made statements that she had requested additional training with Gabrielle Pickle. Do you recall that?
Yes.
Did you also, in the course of your investigation, conclude that there was a lot of rushing on the set?
From statements provided to me, yes.
Did you also learn that whether safety meetings had occurred every day on set?
From the interviews that I conducted, it seemed pretty apparent that they were not conducted every day.
Okay. Was it also apparent to you that the safety bulletins, like for the industry, were not attached to the call sheets?
That's correct.
Did you ever find any inventory procedure or anything that Rust Productions had put together for the ammunition that was coming in?
No.
Did you find any inventory procedure in the call sheets or otherwise in production regarding the firearms?
No.
There was a gun safe on the prop truck, correct?
That's correct.
And was that safe, who had access to that safe?
It would have been Miss Gutierrez and Sarah Zachary. And it was a little unclear about Nicole.
Okay, and Nicole, again, for the jury, she was the props assistant?
Yes.
Okay. At or before the search of the prop truck that we talked about earlier, did Seth Kinney obtain the code to that safe?
Yes.
Because he was the one that let you all in on the 27th into the prop truck, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. In the course of your
Well,
investigation,
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm going to back up.
Yeah.
He did not. Did you say the prop truck or the safe?
the safe. I'm sorry, I misspoke. It was
Okay.
the safe. I meant.
Yeah, he did not let us into the prop truck, but he did let us into the safe.
Okay. And prior to that search on the 27th, between the time of the incident on the 21st and then the 27th, there was at least a few days in there where that prop truck was not secure, correct?
I wasn't on scene, so I cannot say definitively.
Well, do you know as case agent that sheriffs were stationed there the entire time?
They were not stationed there the whole time, but I know they were there at least for a couple days before I obtained the search warrant.
Okay, so at least from your knowledge as case agent, law enforcement was not present at that prop truck for at least a couple of days.
Yes, correct.
I want to talk to you a little bit about the search of the prop truck on the date of 27th and then the search of PDQ props. What date did that occur on, the search of PDQ props?
November 30th,
Okay.
2021.
So November 30th, 2021, that was approximately a month and 10 days after the incident. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Sure. And I might be off a day if I am this close. It's about a month and 10 days, right?
Okay. Yes.
Okay. Now, during that time frame, from reviewing phone records, did you have a call with Seth Kenney on October 25th? It lasted about 20 minutes.
I probably.
Do you recall that call, which would have been 2 days before the search of the prop truck?
I don't.
Between the time of the search of PDQ props and the shooting incident, that month and 10 days, you remember how many calls you had with Seth Kenney?
No, there were a bit.
There was a lot, wasn't there? He would call you quite a bit?
Yes.
And isn't it true that he would try to give you information and try to steer you in certain ways?
I don't believe he was trying to steer me in any way. I think that he was trying to be helpful in locating the source of the live ammunition.
Didn't he push this onto Miss Gutierrez-Reed?
Push.
Didn't he indicate that Miss Gutierrez-Reed must be the source of the live ammunition?
He probably, he may have said something to that extent.
And in fact, haven't you seen messages in the course of your investigation where he's trying to implicate Miss Gutierrez-Reed?
Yes, I believe she was licensed under them.
And you know that right after the shooting, Miss Zachary and Mr. Kenney had text and a phone call, correct?
Yes.
And you remember that there was words to the effect that there had been a shooting?
I believe the text message said emergency.
Emergency. Do you know what they discussed?
Hang on. We're back to hearsay. And so I want to make a hearsay objection. I can't figure out what the exception would be to this.
And again, Your Honor, I'll word it in terms of her course of her investigation and the effect. And it's not for the truth. I'm just trying to find out.
Well, let's see let's see if it meets effect on listener. I haven't heard that yet.
I guess my concern is that what's going to happen here is Mr. Bowles is just going to get a bunch of hearsay out. The jury's going to hear it. And then maybe it doesn't have an effect on the listener. And then hearsay's just out. And then we've just broken the rules of evidence. So is there a way we can do this so that Mr. Bowles doesn't get to spend the next half an hour?
Why don't you just ask her if any text message between the two of them, what, if anything, it had on the effect of the investigation?
Yes, I was going to ask you that. And we were going to have Sarah Zachary as a witness. So we're not going to. But the after the phone call and text occurred, did you learn and did you investigate whether rounds had been thrown away on the set, on the scene?
I received a statement of that.
Okay, that rounds had been thrown away.
This is
on the
he's providing it. This is testimony by the lawyer. Morrissey is quite correct. He can ask, did you have text communications between Kenney and Sarah Zachary? Yes. Did anything about those text investigations lead you in a certain direction in your investigation, impact how you conducted your investigation? Yes. Then you have an exception to the hearsay rule. But you can't say the substance of the communication until you've demonstrated an exception to the hearsay rule. Or you have to remove the jury and have this conversation outside the hearing of the jury. I just can't believe this guy's a lawyer. If I were to discover this guy's not actually admitted to the bar, that he's wearing a lawyer costume.
Corporal, did you investigate whether rounds were thrown away?
Again, that was a statement in an interview.
And I'm not asking about the statement. I'm asking if you investigated that at all.
I'm not really sure how to, if you want to reword it a different way.
Sure. Did you try to locate rounds that were thrown away?
Over a month later?
I'm just asking the question if you tried to do that. Okay.
That statement was given over a month later.
And likewise, the search of PDQ props was over a month after the shooting incident, correct?
Correct.
And so there would have been time for Mr. Kinney, had he wanted to get rid of evidence if he had wanted to. Is that a fair statement?
If he had wanted to.
Okay. Did you also investigate whether items had been taken from the prop cart to the prop truck after the shooting? Because Ms. Gutierrez-Reed made that statement.
What statement?
Mr. Bowles, can you just tell her what statement you're referring to? I think this is not hearsay, so I think Ms. Gutierrez's statements
Why
can come
doesn't
in.
he just ask if she did that without the added part unless
Sure.
it's necessary? I don't know.
Yes, and I just was trying to ask her if you investigated whether items had been taken from the prop cart to the prop truck.
Um,
Can you give a time period?
Yes, right after the shooting, before law enforcement got there.
so during the investigation, it was relayed to me that there had been firearms that were secured back in the prop truck.
And my question was, did you investigate to determine whether that was correct?
I'm not really, I'd say it was a statement given to me, and we had done a search on the prop truck.
Okay,
So,
were you able to corroborate that?
well, I don't know exactly what guns were identified to which actor. So I can't really say.
Okay, so you didn't,
I would say that we followed up on it.
okay. You also saw on the video where a man at the scene had reached across the crime scene tape. You recall that video?
Yes.
You recall seeing his hand that it was kind of like this, and he put it down on the cart over the tape. Do you recall seeing that?
I recall seeing him grab something off the cart and then putting it back.
Do you recall seeing his hand being behind his back and coming around sort of shaped like this and then go over the tape onto the cart?
No.
You don't recall seeing?
And Your Honor, this is Mr. Bowles testifying. Mr. Bowles is testifying because he didn't get the right information from any of this.
All right. Move on.
Yeah, well, you don't know whether he put something on the cart or whether he took something off, do you?
And I will object to foundation because this witness wasn't there.
That's why I asked her if she didn't know. That's why I said you don't know.
All right. So she's already said that she doesn't know. So let's move on.
Now, I want to ask you more about Seth Kinney. You never took his fingerprints, correct?
Correct.
And you never took his DNA, correct?
That's correct.
And you also never took his phone to be downloaded like the other phones that you took, right?
That's correct.
So, Mr. Kinney, I know you mentioned had shown you certain text messages and other information, but you never got the entirety of what was on his phone, correct?
It wasn't a full extraction, if that's what you're referring to.
Yes, right. It was not a full extraction.
That's correct.
And in contrast, you got extractions of phones for Ms. Gutierrez-Reed, Sarah Zachary, Mr. Halls, and Mr. Baldwin, correct?
Yes, because they were on the set.
Okay, and you had mentioned that before, but actually Seth Kinney was the primary source of ammunition to the set.
I will
right?
object to the form of that question. It is completely contrary to the evidence that the jury has heard, and Mr. Bowles knows it.
Actually, Your Honor, I don't. And I'm asking her a question. It's perfectly permissible to ask her. If she
Go ahead
disagrees.
and ask the question.
Okay, but my question to you is, were you aware that Seth Kinney was the primary ammunition supplier to the set?
I don't know if I would say primary, but he was a source of ammunition.
Okay, he was a source of ammunition to the set. And knowing that, isn't it true that it would be possible for his fingerprints to be on the boxes or ammunition he supplied?
It could be possible.
And in fact, you submitted for potential fingerprints, those 4 blank rounds that we saw earlier to the FBI, right?
Yes.
But you did not send any of the live rounds for fingerprint testing.
I think that was discussed with the FBI. Why?
And I understand that, but why would it be different in your understanding to send the blanks versus the live rounds?
I'm sorry, the blanks.
The blanks you sent for fingerprint testing, why were they different? And why could you not have sent the live round? Why is there a difference?
Do you mean the cartridges?
The cartridges.
Okay, those
I'm
aren't
sorry.
blanks.
I'm not blanks. I'm sorry. The cartridges you sent, you're right. Already fired cartridges that you sent. Why is that different than the live rounds?
That test was not requested by us.
The test. Which
for
test?
those cartridges?
For which cartridges?
You're talking about the 4 casings.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Yes. So that test came from the request for it came from Ms. Morrissey.
Okay, so the special prosecutor decided that she was going to try to test the cartridges for the fingerprints. Is that right?
Yes.
So given that, I'm just trying to figure out why the live rounds couldn't have also been tested.
I had that discussion with you several times, I believe. Right?
We did. We talked about it. And
yes.
I just still wanted to ask you why those weren't submitted, because wouldn't it have been possible?
I think you heard testimony from the FBI that they wouldn't.
There was I don't think they said they wouldn't. I think they said a very low percentage.
Correct. So that, again, I had this discussion with the district attorney's office, with our crime scene technician, along with our FBI Albuquerque representative. And I believe we took it back to the lab representatives as well as to DNA and latent print testing on the live ammunition that we had found on set. So the reason why we did not proceed, which I had discussed with you, as to why we did not do that testing, was because there were several statements throughout my interviews and investigation in general that these live rounds had already been touched, handled. This wasn't day 1 of filming. I believe this was day 12. So we had already had statements that these rounds, one may have came from other movie sets, which were the ones in the bandoliers. The ones in the box had been handled by Sarah Zachary, along with, the ones that were in the weapon handled by Hannah and Dave. And there's just a lot of handling of those rounds that to us and the discussions that we had, it didn't make sense for us to do testing on those when we already knew that there were numerous people handling them. It didn't make sense, which I discussed that with you. And I also referred, if you had any issues with that, going further to discuss it with the district attorney's office.
And you had no idea when those rounds appeared on set. You don't have any direct evidence of that.
Of when they did?
Yes.
No.
So you have no idea if they appeared on day 1 or day 11.
Correct.
So given that, the statement you just made about all this handling, you really don't know that, do you? Because you don't know when they came onto set.
Again, there's a lot of people handling that stuff on set.
Well, if they appeared on the day in question, if that box had just appeared, then you have no idea how many people handled those, do you?
If that box had just appeared.
Yes, right.
If.
Right. You don't know.
Right.
Okay. And so you also heard Ms. Gutierrez Reed state that they would frequently use dummies, and then they would mix them out with other boxes. And I asked Popple that. Did you hear that testimony?
Yes.
And so you don't know one way or another, because you just saw the boxes as they were in the 21st, whether those were the same rounds in the same box on the 18th, for example.
That's correct.
Okay. And you wouldn't know if they had used them before and then changed them out in a different box, correct?
Who are you referring to?
Miss Zachary and Miss Gutierrez Reed, if they use them in the course of a day, you don't know which box they would have put them in.
That's correct.
Okay. When you went to Mr. Kinney's business to search, that was pursuant to search warrant again, correct?
Yes.
And so a judge again signed a search warrant on probable cause to search that business, correct?
Yes.
And you were looking for certain evidence of live rounds, is that right?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. Did you take a series of photos at that search warrant?
Did I know?
Okay, Miss Popple did?
Yes.
But you were present to see the various things that were there and that were being photographed.
Yes.
There was a picture that I want to show you in a moment of a box of ammo that had a steel wool in that picture. Do you recall that?
I do not. I'm sorry.
Okay, I want to show that to you.
So I do have an objection. This photo is not in evidence, and I don't know that the photo can come into evidence through this witness. Would you like to approach, or?
I want to see what he's going to do.
All right.
Yeah. Counsel, you had mentioned this was coming in. So this picture is the one that you talked about.
No. I told you the other picture from Mr. Kinney was coming in during his testimony. That is a photo that you should have gotten in through Ms. Popple, and you can call her back if you want to.
Well, if you want to, I'm going to ask her if she recognizes it. If I
My
may
guess.
approach her. Do you recall, ma'am, if you can look at this photo? Let's see if you recognize that box.
I couldn't say for certain.
So you don't remember seeing this particular box and the steel wool?
Asked and answered.
In here. You don't remember this from the search?
Your Honor, asked and answered. She's already said.
Sustained.
Okay, we'll call Officer Popple back. Let me ask you this. How many times have you prepped your testimony with Miss Morrissey?
A few.
How many times have you met with her? How many days?
I couldn't say an exact number.
Was it 2? Is it 3?
Again, I couldn't say an exact number.
So you don't know how many days you've met to prepare?
An exact number? No, and
No.
I don't want to just assume.
Okay. Have you talked to her on the phone about it?
Yes.
Did you go over the questions she was going to ask you and your answers?
Yes.
So in essence, you practiced for today, right?
Yes.
So
That's what you're supposed to do.
You've gone over these exhibits. You've gone over what you're going to say today.
That's correct.
So when you gave those answers earlier, in fact, you knew what a particular exhibit number was. It was 48. That was something you all had discussed, wasn't it?
I don't believe the specific exhibit number, but again, she showed me when she would ask about it.
On a break?
Just now when she
Right.
would ask about
I'm
it.
sorry, I don't know off the top of my head what Exhibit 48 is, and I don't know that the witness does. So in order for this to make sense,
She didn't ask for clarification.
All right.
I think we're just going over this.
well, if he's mentioning me, I don't know what he's talking about.
Thank you.
Well, she does, because she was the one that
Let's
prepped you,
move
right?
on.
Yes, I will, Your Honor. Did Miss Morrissey prep you, or was it somebody else?
Yes, she did.
So she was there talking to you, right? Or on the phone or in person? She was the one talking to you. correct?
Yes, it's pretty normal to prep with the attorney you're working with for a trial.
Did you help prep other witnesses in this case with Miss Morrissey? Were you present?
No.
Okay. As a case agent, I'm not accusing you of anything. I'm just wondering if you were present during other interviews.
Asked and answered. She already said no.
Move on.
Okay. Now,
That's the face you make when you realize your
Talk
lawyer's
about
garbage.
you and Mr. Baldwin had 2 phone calls that you recorded. You recall that?
Yes.
And did you have other phone calls that were not recorded?
There may have been.
Would that be unusual for in your standard operating procedures to have a call with a suspect that you do not record?
So it was a phone call. So no, we're not really required to use lapels to record phone calls.
Okay, is that true though? When you have a suspect in a shooting case, he's the one accused of shooting. If that person calls you, you're saying you don't have to record that?
By policy, no. I've had numerous phone calls where I potentially didn't have a lapel near me. They take time to turn on. So it's possible. There are probably other phone calls in this case that weren't recorded as well.
Do you remember the substance of the unrecorded phone calls?
Can you point them out? I don't.
I don't know because we don't have them recorded. I'm just wondering if you can remember any of the substance.
No.
So in the recorded phone calls, do you recall a call of 13 minutes with Mr. Baldwin, approximately, in which he was driving to Vermont?
I'm sure that there was one.
And you recall that he was...
Come over here.
Okay.
The judge is so unhappy. The judge is so unhappy having to deal. Look how she's looking at attorney Jason Bowles. Look at her. She looks like she's his ex-wife, and he hasn't paid his alimony and child support this month. Oh. She just caught little Timmy with his wiener out in the backyard where the neighbors can see. Yeah, that's the guy on the right, Jason Bowles, the defense attorney. Oh my God. Hannah hired this guy as a lawyer, like Rust hired Hannah as an armorer. She's done. Hannah's going to hop right on Amazon, go to Kindle. Planning for Prison, A Young Woman's Guide. Illustrated. Any surprise this guy couldn't line up a defense armorer expert witness? Anybody surprised now? Anybody surprised he authorized a download of his client's phone with no restrictions, even on attorney-client privilege material? She'd be looking at 18 months if she's found guilty. Just 18 months. That's the max. She's going to download Get Hard, the movie. No, this is not the lawyer she fired. She fired the other one, who I thought was pretty good. I mean, in the little bit I saw of him in 2 days of occasional cross. Prison for armorers.
Corporal, did you ever, and I don't want to know the substance, but did you ever talk to Troy Teskey in this case?
I believe very briefly.
And again, I don't want to know the substance of the call, but what during that call was Seth Kennedy present?
I believe so.
And again, was this right around the time of the shooting?
I don't recall the date.
Okay.
All that scribbling.
You, again, not getting into the substance.
I'm doing the best I can here, Your Honor.
In the course of this case, correct?
At your request.
And you did talk to him, though, right?
Yes.
Okay. Did you ever talk to Joe Swanson?
I don't believe so.
On those boxes, the JS, I think you confirmed those stand for Joe Swanson?
That's what I was told, yes.
Okay.
We've got another 2.5 hours of this.
Okay, Your Honor, may I have just a moment?
Oh my God, please be over. Morrissey's going to storm back in here on redirect. We're probably up 4 hours of redirect. Morrissey's. They've got her tied to her chair right now. Oh, look, he's got sticky notes. That's good. That's the ineffective assistance of counsel appeal.
Transcripts on the prop card? Question?
I don't know what you're handing me, sir.
It's what you emailed me, Kerri.
Is this what I?
It's what you emailed me.
Okay,
It's part of it.
yes. Have you reviewed every word? Because you should if you haven't.
Oh!
So, ma'am, you recall when I started this, I asked you a question about the first interview, and where in that first interview, Ms. Gutierrez Reed had said she loaded it over the prop card, that she unloaded that gun over the prop card. Do you recall that?
Yeah, I believe I remember her saying something to that extent.
Okay, do you recall if I showed you pages of the transcript, would that refresh your memory as to the exact words that she had said?
Yes.
Okay. Your Honor, I may approach?
Yeah.
There's several pages here.
Oh my gosh. Morrissey's on fire.
Those two, so, please. And it should be highlighted.
I would request that the witness read the entire thing. Not just Mr. Bowles' highlighted portion.
They're not, I didn't highlight them.
Well, someone from the defense team highlighted them.
Okay, did you get to review them? Did you?
I am asking that the witness review all of them.
Stay focused. We're going to look at this.
Sure.
This is looking to be a huge misstep by Bowles. Morrissey is just like, she's watching him step into the bear trap. The rule of completeness is going to allow, of course, for the reading of the whole thing, not just little highlighted portions, arguably out of context. He's like the little mouse poking at the cheese in the rat trap. Dear Lord. Yeah, the lips are a bad idea. I don't know why. Please don't do that, ladies. What she needs is a diet. She doesn't need lip fillers.
For the record, can we get the page numbers of the transcript that are being handed to the witness?
You probably should have had those because you looked at them.
I didn't take note of the
She,
page
as a
numbers.
courtesy, gave you her transcript. You can give her the page.
I believe it's page 28 through 32.
You're not the one examining. Please let him answer.
I will withdraw the
No.
request.
All right.
So much for being collegial. This is more like the pretrial motions were in tone.
Do you have a chance to read those?
Yes.
If you can hand those back.
Can I just read her statement?
No, it's refreshing your memory.
Okay.
You wanted the quote, but it's refreshing your memory. So
Okay.
you can remember from memory.
What are you saying, Mr. Bowles? Are you speaking to me?
Yeah, I'm saying.
What would you like, sir?
We're trying to get to the truth. That's what I think.
All right, you all. If you all ask your question, I'll let you have coffee. Let's focus here with our caffeine and ask if she remembers what was said to her.
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay.
Ma'am, do you remember now the exact words that were said?
Yes.
And what were those?
Her statement was, I took them all out. It was there on the cart too.
Okay, and again, and this is entered into evidence. Do you recall actually that she said?
All right.
No.
Something funny?
Yes.
You want
All right.
these-
You know what? We're going to take a break. We're going to spare you a little. All right. Please don't talk among yourselves or anyone else about the evidence received here in court.
All right.
Is something funny? Bowles says there's something funny, and the judge says yes. The judge says yes. Look at Morrissey. She's shaking her head and laughing back there. Oh my God. Judge, take a break. This courtroom's going out of control. Bowles is utterly incompetent. Again, if I were to discover if there was an investigation and it turns out he's never been admitted to the bar, it wouldn't surprise me. He can't just testify from a transcript. He's not a witness.
This has been entered into evidence. So I did refresh your memory.
Well, the
but
transcript hasn't been entered into
the
evidence.
transcript, but the actual words of this should reflect what was said on the tape.
All right, looks like the jury's out.
Objection by the government.
Oh, they cut off the mic. I'm starting to think that Hannah Gutierrez is a better armorer than Jason Bowles is a criminal defense attorney. And that's saying something. I mean, she got someone killed, arguably. he is rocket shipping this client into prison. I can't believe they cut off the mic. Oh my gosh, that was fun. Another break. Bowles is done. He's got nothing. He's got nothing. I just can't wait until the defense starts to present their case in chief. This is going to be insane. Imagine if it turns out he's been faking being a lawyer and he gets prosecuted and convicted and spends 18 months in prison in the cell next to Gutierrez. This should be a movie. Your Honor, Mr. Bowles is testifying. Bowles turns around. You can't handle my testimony. You can't handle my testimony. Man. The judge is she's not allowing the speaking objections to get so snarky. She's gently correcting, hoping they're going to start behaving like adults. But Morrissey is right to be outraged. This is ridiculous conduct by the defense. He knows he's not allowed to testify. He knows he's not allowed to elicit clear hearsay. He's asking the witnesses if they remember individual timestamps from an hour-plus long interview. It's ridiculous. He's trying to introduce evidence that this witness can't provide a foundation for. We already had the witness that could have provided that foundation. He could have gotten his exhibit entered into evidence then. The transcript's not on the record. The video's entered into evidence. The transcript is not in evidence. They'd have to bring in a witness to provide a foundation for getting like, who did the transcript? Did you listen to this video? What are your qualifications as a transcriptionist? Have you had an opportunity to review this transcript before coming to trial? Is this a fair and accurate representation of what was said in the video? You have to do all of that. Yeah. This remake of My Cousin Vinny sucks. Oh, Tony, law self-defense member Tony says, an appeal for ineffective counsel would take longer than the 18 months max sentence. That's true. We had much the same situation with the taser lady, right? She was sentenced ultimately to something like, I think, a net of 14 months. And there was a lot wrong in that trial. She could have appealed, but you wouldn't get the appeal heard before the 14 months was up. And then what if you win the appeal and you go back for a retrial and you get a real manslaughter sentence? So apparently Justice Jackson, the woman on the Supreme Court who doesn't know what a woman is, said that bump stocks can fire 800 rounds a second. Only the best. We are a society in collapse. In collapse. Oh my God. So imagine what happens if Biden gets elected again and replaces a couple of the conservative justices with a couple more Sotomayors. What do you think happens to the Second Amendment? All right, looks like the jury's coming back in just a minute. Everyone's standing up. The adult is probably told counsel to stop acting like little bitches. I can't read the thread on X right now, but I'll bookmark it. It looks like there's a lot of great memes. I'll bookmark it for maybe. Oh, there's so little time when I get home. I don't know why Bowles is smiling. Bowles is about to get pegged on redirect. If they ever get to redirect. Yeah, I'll try to get to that thread on X later. Fully semi-automatic Supreme Court justice. It would end. It would form. Bump stocks can form a black hole. It would be the end of the time-space continuum. It would open dimensions to new worlds. Oh, they put the seal back up. No audio. I don't know what they were just talking about. Super lawyers will probably remove Bowles from their site. Is he on their site? Oh, gosh. I've never been a super lawyer, folks. I've never been a super lawyer. Oh, my God. Yeah, you got to pay to be a super lawyer. I've never been inclined to do that. I already know. I'm the nation's expert on use of force law. Prove me wrong. They were confusing minutes and seconds. That's crazy. Of course, they'd make them NFA items, right? Imagine the ammo expense. We were talking about buying primers 1,000 at a time. You'd need $130 box of primers every second. Good Lord. That's why I never got anything full auto. Alec Baldwin's defense attorneys aren't, it's not this clown. I don't know if I have their names immediately available, but let me see. I haven't researched his lawyers yet. I haven't had time. I do have a note to self to do that. That's not what I wanted. But if anybody wants, see if I can find it. His lawyers are Luke Nikas, Nikas, Heather LeBlanc, and Alex Spiro. Alex Spiro, I believe, is the famous one. Partner in a New York City law firm. Investigations, government enforcement on white-collar crime. New Yorker Magazine, How Alex Spiro Keeps the Rich and Famous Above the Law. Harvard Law School, Plain Spoken Charm. I think he's going to be nothing like Jason Bowles. Who is Alex Spiro representable for? Mick Jagger, Charles Oakley, Julian Edelman, Philip Seymour. Oh, it says involved in litigation surrounding Philip Seymour Hoffman, but it doesn't say he represented him. So he'll probably be pretty good. Anybody competent would be better than this. This is Gutierrez got this guy out of Cracker Jack box. The other guy, Luke Nikas, a leading commercial litigator. Also out of New York. High net worth individual. Partner at the New York law firm. Quinn Emanuel Urquhart and Sullivan. Another big gun. Imagine what they were doing. They must have been laughing their asses off watching these interviews with Bowles. And Heather LeBlanc is a local Albuquerque, New Mexico. So the New York guys will be representing Baldwin in New Mexico, Pro Hac Vici, with Heather LeBlanc, the local attorney, acting as kind of their umbrella, and they've been approved by the court, even though they're New York lawyers and not New Mexico lawyers. With her covering the New Mexico facet, they're allowed to practice for the purposes of this case before this judge. Crazy. Kim Potter was the taser later. Yeah. If the nipply thing don't fit, you must acquit. Somebody says Heather's a competent lawyer. I don't know her at all. I mean, I presume lawyers are competent until like this guy, they prove otherwise. Shane says, I believe Sotomayor's diabetes affects her moods and decisions. I feel she shouldn't have been nominated. She shouldn't have been nominated because she's an idiot. I mean, just read her opinions. There's no legal reasoning in those opinions. No, Heather LeBlanc was not co-counsel with Kerri. It was Nicole Moss was co-Kerri with Kerri Morrissey on the Dean Cummings case. Nicole Moss was quite good. Not I'm not sure at Morrissey's level, but very good. Somebody writes, the lawyer she fired got off easy. He did. Oh my God. He's home drinking a good bourbon, watching this on court TV. I don't think I've ever seen a public defender this bad. Yes, I'll concede to banning the guns that shoot 800 rounds per second. we can ban all those guns. I've never owned a bump stock, folks. I can't imagine. I have no use for bump stock, but either it's an arm. It's part of an arm, a firearm. All the parts of a firearm are an arm. It's protected by the Second Amendment. Shall not be infringed. Oh, my Lord. Let's see. 1140 people watching. 800 likes. That's not bad. Thank you, everybody. How about this? Let me see if there's some questions that have come in. A few more subscribers. I need another 613, folks. I need 613 new subscribers to get to 60,000. And there's 1,100, almost 1,200 of you on this stream. So if you're not yet subscribed, a subscription would be most appreciated. Let's see. Check out the super chats. Pugs. Oh, we have a new one from Pugs. $10 super chat. Thank you very much, Pugs. Writes, always treat any firearm like it's loaded. Thank you for putting on these streams. Well, that's very kind of you, Pugs. I would play my little chiking sound effect, but it's not working, unfortunately. Or I would do better. Paul says, can I subscribe twice? Oh. Lee says, I question the choice of a commercial litigation attorney for criminal defense. I guess Heather LeBlanc is probably the local criminal defense attorney. Yeah, defense lawyer. LeBlanc Law, fighting for you every step of the way. Practice areas. Oh, yeah, it looks like it's all criminal stuff. It's all criminal stuff, really. So, about blog. Experience in high-profile cases, her website says here. I'll pull up her website. So this is LeBlanc. I've got nothing bad to say about her, just to be clear. This is the first time I've ever looked. LeBlanc Law, that certainly looks like New Mexico. I've ridden my motorcycle through this terrain many times. Experience in high-profile cases. Front and center on her website, her involvement in the Alec Baldwin case. Don't blame her a bit. There she is. I mean, it looks like there's a lot of filtering going on there, but looks fine in that photo. She owns a hairbrush, apparently. That's good. Now offering virtual consultations. Why choose us? Free 30 minutes in the legal industry, more than 15 years. Drug crimes, sex crimes, violent crimes, expungements. All typical criminal defense stuff. So, yeah, I mean, until I know otherwise, I'll presume that she knows what she's doing, and she's educating the commercial litigators on criminal defense law. So hopefully she's good enough to prevent bad things from happening. One problem you can run into, of course, is that the lawyer who starts direct with a witness is the lawyer who keeps direct with the witness. So when you go direct, the other side gets cross-examination, you come back for redirect, it's got to be the same lawyer. It's not like she can step in on redirect and fix mistakes the other guy's made. But we'll see. It looks like the other guys are, Harvard law grads, Manhattan partners in Manhattan law firms. So it should be fun for sure. Paul says, seems to have decent reviews. Yeah, I could get one of those bellboy chimes. It's so frustrating that these sound effects don't work anymore. There's no good reason for it. When I hit the buttons, it sounds perfect in my earbuds, but I've done some like recordings, non-live stream recordings, and it just doesn't go over the computer. I don't know why. We lost Afghanistan because we didn't deploy bump stocks. Lee says Harvard law grads don't scare me in the courtroom. No, me either. It's a good way to become a partner in a New York law firm, though. And it's helpful for that purpose. Yeah, no, in criminal defense and court's a different animal completely. Distance says, bought a 1911 for $350 10 years ago, and it turned out to be good. That's just luck. $350 1911. You got lucky, my friend. Yeah. Yeah, those New York lawyers better keep their manners in check, though. And this is going to be the same judge for that trial too, and she doesn't look like she takes shit from anybody. I feel so bad for her. Just a second, folks. Sorry. Trying to manage video production for the blog post later in real time. Oh, lordy. You don't often get quite this level of a circus. We've had different circuses, right? We've had kind of the malevolent binger. We've had lawyers that just lied to the jury about what the tool or drill is. We have the lawyers who speak in rhymes. But I'm not sure I've ever had a lawyer that's that bad. Miles Dog asked, is my 507 co-witness on your 365? No, I didn't put higher sights on the 365. I don't like the co-witness. And in my opinion, the dots are so reliable these days. I've never had this dot go down. I've had thousands of rounds to this little 365 XL with the Holosun on it. And it just keeps running and running and running. And especially with the 507K anyway, it's got like a little rear sight notch kind of built into it. So, I mean, I'm not taking any long shots that require great accuracy with the iron sights on this gun. It's the dot. If the dot goes down, then I have a different problem. I still have basic sights on the gun. Joe says, why the same judge? Would that not be in conflict? No, they always use the same judge. When it's two related cases, so many of the witnesses and the investigators and the facts and all this, because partly if you have the same judge, you end up with the same rulings on evidentiary questions and things of that sort. It maintains a certain consistency. Very common. Just like if someone's convicted, goes to prison, appeals their conviction, is awarded a new trial, it typically comes back to the same trial judge. He's familiar with the case. Lee says, Heather was the managing attorney of felony division in the Albuquerque Public Defender's Office. Well, she is probably excellent then. That is a very good sign for the defense. Of course, they need they need that. I wonder what they're paying her as a private attorney. What do you think the Manhattan law firms are paying her? You think they told her, listen, we'll pay you what we're making for this trial? And she said, that sounds awesome. Yeah, that's a good pick. Very few criminal defense attorneys get the kind of actual trial time that public defenders do. And managing attorney of the felony division, you get there by working your way up, obviously. That's a good sign. She will know her stuff. Sometimes these public defender attorneys, they've got hundreds of criminal trials under their belt. Let's see. I think the judge is making balls stand in a corner with a dunce hat on. Oh. I know he does. He looks like a defendant acting pro se. Like he's just making shit up. He doesn't know what he's supposed to be doing. I mean, did he just become a lawyer? Was it like one of these, mail order things? Unbelievable. Kyle says, I have a Holosun on my AR, but don't want one on my EDC. Couple reasons. If I retrain my decrepit brain to look for it and lose it, I might balk when trying to go back to iron. Yeah, I mean, I would say the real issue with dots, the way they are currently designed, is the gun has to come up with the dot on the glass. Your presentation has to be consistent enough that when the gun comes up, the dot's in the glass. Now with irons, it's a little more forgiving, because when you bring up a pistol with irons, the iron front sight's always there somewhere, and you don't even know you're doing it, but you're making little micro adjustments as you finish your presentation. Now, if you shoot at a very high level with irons, guess what? When the gun comes up, the iron is right there. There's no micro adjustments. The iron's in the same place. It's where you need it to be for that target, which is the level of skill in presentation you need with a dot. Because if the gun's cocked, the dot could be off the glass, and then it's hard to find. So yes, the dot takes a commitment that irons don't, for sure. But I just have trouble seeing the front sight, especially under poor light conditions now, just because of the age of my eyes. With the dot, this little 365 XL makes distance shots just fine. I mean, 50-yard shots, like on a humanoid-sized plate, no problem. My first couple of dots, I put suppressor height sights on them, but I wouldn't do it again. I'm not going to do that again. I'm debating whether to put a dot on my 30-year-old 1911, one of my Wilson combat guns. I'm sending it in to be refurbished again. And this is the gun I have like 100,000 rounds through, and it needs some tuning up. It's ready. But one option is they'll put one of a variety of red dots on it for an extra $600. And I can't decide whether to keep it the way I got it in 1996. Would it be blasphemy to get it drilled and tapped for a dot? I haven't made up my mind yet. I just can't decide. I don't need a dot on it. I have plenty of guns with dots, but I'll probably leave it the way it is. Maybe Wilson will sell me a slide that's drilled and tapped, a separate slide. I'll have to ask him. Yeah, have Wilson put the plate on it and use it if you feel the need. Yeah, that's what I would pick. They have this plate that they mount on top of the slide that you can put the red dot on. I don't think you can't cut the slide on a 1911 for a dot because the firing pin channel is too high in the slide to allow for that. Yeah, so I shot it 15 years in competition, and I was shooting on average typically 10,000 rounds a year. A few years less than that. A couple of years I was out of the country, so I wasn't shooting. So I'm guesstimating 100, but it could easily be 20 more than that for sure. I got to be honest, I don't really shoot with both eyes open. I never did with irons, and I don't with dots. I'm left eye dominant, but I shoot with my right eye, and I've just developed the habit. I just squint my left eye to kind of take it out of the picture, and it works fine for me. It works fine for me with handguns and rifles. It destroys me when it comes to shooting clays. Doesn't work for shooting clays. Let's see. Yeah, I can't. I would have to switch the gun over to my left eye if I had both eyes open, and that just feels too weird for me. I'm too old to develop a whole new style of shooting a handgun. What I've got works just fine. Let's see. Yeah, but now those of you who are in the military, if in our generation, when they even like the first Gulf War, when they were still handing out 1911s, you picked up. I was never in the military, but I've heard from friends. You pick up those 1911s and they would shake them, and you could hear all the parts rattling. It wasn't a very tight slide to frame fit, and my Wilson is kind of like that now. That's why I'm sending it in. I just sent in my Garand to get fully refurbished. They picked it up last week. Went out in the mail. I have very high expectations for what it's going to look like. I sent it out to Fulton Armory. They do a lot of that kind of work. And yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited to get that back. Yeah, Tree Godfather says the 1911s we were issued were pretty clapped out. Yeah. Yeah, it's an M1 Garand. It's a Springfield. I got it through the CMP program like 35 years ago. I think I paid $300 for it. Crazy. And they mailed it to me USPS. Yeah, the CMP was great. I looked recently and everything was like $1,000 minimum. I looked a couple years ago and everything was $1,000 minimum. But it's going to cost me $1,000 to get it refurbished. So I guess I'm paying the price anyway. Have I done any 50-meter shooting? I don't know what you mean. I mean, if that's a formal course of fire, like a particular kind of competition, I haven't done that. I've shot handguns out to 100 yards. I mean, on other people's ranges, they got a big plate way in the distance, and we goof around and try to hit it. But yeah, there's 50, well, I would say 50 yards. There's 50-yard shots in IDPA, not commonly, but they exist. USPSA, they exist when they want to make things interesting. Most routine competitors can't hit anything at 50 yards with a handgun. They don't have the shooting fundamentals to do that. But any decent handgun should have no trouble hitting a man-sized target at 50 yards at all. Let's see. Jerry says, I got one here in Sweden, and then one Garand. Well, that's cool. That's very cool. Bob says, I thought they issued the M9 Beretta 92 in the first Gulf War. I think when things heated up, they were just pulling 1911s out of the Army, just issuing what they had. But again, I wasn't there. I'm just recounting things I was told. Mike Stetson said, we had 1911s and M14s on my sub. The 1911s were definitely well worn. They still run good. They just they make they rattle. That's all. Cigar Texan says $850 right now for CMP. Rack grade for like $700. And that's not bad. If you don't own one, I would pick one up. I'd recommend it. Little bit of history. Little bit of history. I like having mine. I mean, I don't shoot it very often, but I like having it. I would have liked to have gotten a 1911 from CMP. Maybe I'll still look into that. Just for the history again. Let's see. Martin says, if you shoot a bow, you need to switch hands. Well, I've done a little bit of bow shooting, compound bow shooting. And I just worked my eyes like I did with a handgun. I can't say I was ever any good with a bow, but it's no, these modern bows they're so nice to shoot. I mean, the compound bows with the little pins for sights, it makes it a lot easier. Ken Hackathorn says no fancy stuff is needed. Yeah, we got a lot of good. Oh, we're back. Okay, here we go.
George.
Look at Mommy Judge. Mommy Judge. Everyone's going to be, it's going to hurt for all those lawyers to be sitting down for the next couple days. Mommy Judge got the belt out.
So, obviously, State's Exhibit 67, which is the interview of Ms. Gutierrez at the police station on October 21, 2024, is relevant to both parties, and that's what we're not going to consume any more time. It's an evidence. You can certainly view it and come to the conclusion that you come to, okay? All right, thank you. And I have a question. Not that one. I'm looking for my stickers.
So he's done? Bowles is done? Did Kerri just walk up to that? Did she put her laptop up there? She's going to do redirect? Bowles is all... The judge shut Bowles down on cross? I think that was Kerri putting her laptop up there. The judge is like, I'm not going to have you. I'm not going to have you ricochet all through an hour plus video this way, Mr. Bowles, asking the witness for timestamps. Like she's got it memorized in her brain, like she's one of Musk's robots. I mean, except for the lips, this is a organic human woman. Oh, it is. Bowles is done.
All right.
Redirect.
Welcome back. Corporal, I want to take you back to the 4 spent casings that we were discussing. Do you remember where those spent casings were found?
I do not.
Do you have any information about where and by whom they were fired?
No.
Oh my God.
Corporal, you were asked by Mr. Bowles if the stress of the event on October 21st would affect Ms. Gutierrez's memory. Do you recall that?
Yes.
And as a trained law enforcement officer, do you know, can the consumption of drugs also affect a person's memory?
Yes.
You were asked several questions on cross-examination about your contact with some witnesses, and I want to follow up on that. You spoke to Ms. Gutierrez's stepfather, is that correct?
Yes, I did.
And you spoke to him at Mr. Bowles's request, is that correct?
That is correct.
And when you spoke to Mr. Reed, he told you that the ammunition.
I'm going to object this hearsay too, if that's what we're doing.
Well, but it came in through him. He was actually asking about the specifics of the information that she received.
Approach, so we can.
Okay.
Reed is not on the state's witness list. Morris is like two can play that game.
With Mr. Reed.
Yes.
Do you recall the description you were provided from Mr. Reed about the type of bullets that he believed you would find at PDQ?
Yeah, he described.
Nope. Don't say that. Just say yes.
Yes.
Okay. When you conducted the search of PDQ, did you find live ammunition?
Yes, we did.
Was the live ammunition consistent with the description provided by Mr. Reed?
Yes, it was.
Are photos of that ammunition entered into evidence in this trial?
Yes.
Now, you were asked some questions about the photograph of the box of ammunition that Ms. Gutierrez showed you during the interview. Do you recall that?
Yes.
Why is the description or appearance of that box important for this investigation?
Because the photo that she had shown me matches the box that we found on Rust that she identified as the box she was using.
And what did you find inside that box that was noteworthy?
Live ammunition.
That's non-leading question. Very good. Well done.
Mr. Bowles asked you some questions about whether or not there were safety meetings on set. Do you recall that?
Yes.
In any of the conversations that Ms. Gutierrez had with you, did she ever indicate that she was concerned or that she complained about lack of safety meetings?
No.
During the interview that you conducted on November 9th, 2021 with Ms. Gutierrez and Mr. Bowles, did you provide safety bulletins during that interview?
Yes, I did.
Did it appear to you from your interaction with Ms. Gutierrez that she had ever seen them before in her life?
No.
Firearms, a safety bulletin one.
About whether or not the prop truck was secured by law enforcement, I think in between the 21st and the execution of the warrant on the 27th. Do you remember those?
Yes.
And were you present in court when Ms. Walters took the stand?
Yes, I was.
Did you hear Ms. Walters testify under oath that the prop truck was padlocked?
Yes.
Did you also hear her testify that after the incident, she intentionally changed the padlocks?
Yes.
Did you hear Ms. Walters testify that the only person who she permitted to get into the prop truck in that time frame was actually the defendant?
Yes.
Did Mr. Baldwin call you numerous times?
Yes.
Did Mr. Kenny call you numerous times?
Yes.
Did Mr. Bowles call you numerous times?
Yes.
Did Mr. Bowles ask other witnesses or potential witnesses to contact you?
Yes.
Because of, and let me ask you, in your conversations with Mr. Bowles, did he implicate Mr. Kenny?
That seemed to be the direction he was going.
And did he put you in touch with Mr. Reed?
Yes, he did.
And did Mr. Reed implicate Mr. Kenny?
Yes, he did.
And did he put you in touch with Mr. Teskey?
I don't believe so.
Okay, you
I don't
recall that?
remember.
Okay. And based on the information that you received from Mr. Bowles and Mr. Reed, what did you do?
I followed up with the information that they provided me.
Did you petition the court for a search warrant?
Yes, I did.
Did you execute the search warrant?
Yes.
Did you seize items from PDQ?
Yes, I did.
Did that investigation lend any usable evidence that Mr. Kenny provided the live ammunition to the set of arrest?
No.
At some point, did you stop pursuing that lead?
Yes.
Why?
Because I had no evidence that supported the information that Mr. Bowles was giving me.
Do you have any information that Mr. Kenny was on the set of arrest prior to the death of Ms. Hutchins?
None.
You were asked whether or not you sent the ammunition boxes that were provided by Mr. Kenny for fingerprints and DNA. Do you recall that?
I believe so.
Would you expect Mr. Kenny's fingerprints and DNA to be on ammunition that he provided?
Yes.
And we understand that I asked you to send the 4 spent casings for print analysis. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Do you recall having a conversation with me where I asked you to do that?
Yes.
Did you tell me that it was highly unlikely that it was going to yield any results?
Yes.
And were you correct?
Yes, I was.
Do you know, and if you don't, just say so, when that box of the dummy rounds with the tape and the blue Sharpie writing that came from Seth Kenny, when did that arrive on set? Do you know?
I don't know the date.
In preparation for your testimony, did you meet with me?
Yes.
Did we meet over Zoom?
Yes.
Is that the only time that you met with me to prepare for testimony in this case?
I believe so.
You met with me on another occasion to prepare on another case. Is that correct?
Yes.
That would be the Baldwin case.
Why is it important for you to meet with the prosecuting attorney before you testify?
A lot of it is to refresh myself with, parts of the case and what I need to focus on, especially because this is such a big case. As you can see, I have a large binder and a large box. So it helps me to narrow down facts that I need to focus on.
And Have you given truthful testimony today?
Yes.
When you met with me, did I tell you what to say?
We talked about what was going to be discussed.
Did I tell you what testimony to give?
Yes.
What did I tell you to give? Did I tell you to tell a lie?
No.
Wrong answer.
You're telling the truth?
Yes, I am.
Did I tell you to tell the truth?
Yes.
And we know that you had an interview with Ms. Gutierrez on the 21st of October and again on November 9th of 2021. On November 9th, did it appear to you that Ms. Gutierrez had been prepped by her attorney?
Yes.
I don't have anything further.
You're excused. Next witness.
That's it. No recross.
Gabrielle